So today we're going to talk about a type of house that I never get to talk about, but I love so much. Spanish colonial. Hey, welcome back to 3-Minute House Review. I'm Archer, and I'm so glad you're here. If you love talking about regular American houses, this is the place. So recently, my wife and I took a trip down to La Jolla, California, near San Diego, because we are avid freedivers. And I got to walk around some amazing neighborhoods that are so different than the Pacific Northwest. And the one way that I love those neighborhoods that I never get to experience here in the Pacific Northwest is to see Spanish colonial architecture. So I love Spanish colonial architecture. It's really the root of ranch style houses, and we'll talk about that a little bit. Let's just dive in. I want to show you some houses that I collected and just talk a little bit about what makes Spanish colonial architecture. All right, so here we are. This is a very simple Spanish style house. The one thing is that it just has a very uncomplicated roof. Just one relatively shallow, we're talking about 312, this angle less. It's like what you see on ranch houses nowadays. Almost never hipped. And in this case, it's got a terracotta tile, which is very Spanish, of course, with this like adobe look or this stucco look. But what is really interesting, and you almost always see in true Spanish colonial architecture, is windows and doors that are kind of interchangeable. The windows and the doors, like the windows are as big as doors. And you see that a lot on French colonial architecture, like in New Orleans, like you have those balconies and all the wrought iron, and then those doors are very often, there are actually windows that go all the way to the floor. And sometimes in French and Spanish colonial architecture, there might not even be connectors between the rooms. You might actually go onto the balcony to go to the next room, and every window is a door. So you follow me on that? There may not be a hallway or even a connector inside. So that's kind of more of the philosophy. Windows and doors are more interchangeable. This is very simple, and I wish I could find the address on this because it's probably $1 million house in La Jolla. All right, so we got the basis of the doors, also asymmetry. Like you almost never see Spanish colonial houses that are symmetrical. And that really goes into what ranch became, right, in the United States, was like a door under a big roof. The roof is relatively unadorned, very few dormers, not really any complications to it. The front door is basically tucked under that main roof. And then the garage is also there. So there's a lot of asymmetry. Usually there's plate glass windows, there's bedroom windows, things change over size, and then you end up with a garage. That's ranch. But now we're going back to look at the DNA of ranch, which is Spanish colonial. All right, here's a more complicated version, and I really appreciate this house. So the windows, this door is also a window, right? Like this kind of French door look there. The other ones are not quite all the way to the floor. What is interesting though is this roof. The roof goes out all the way over the porch. So the porch is tucked into the mass of that very simple roof. Like no complications there, no turns. In this case, we have a beautiful kind of chimney that just sticks out at the very top. It's not showing all the way up. Once again, we have a stucco. The other thing that you'll notice with Spanish colonial is you almost never see turned columns. They're not round. I think of Spain and southern Spain, and I think of like the wood is often, in this case it's painted, but often you see like just wood preserved by desert dryness, right? And not, it's kind of hewn with an axe and not turned. So not round columns, not classical, but very square. And you can see this, all the square woodwork all the way around. And then you also have the gable ends that kind of come out also in kind of chunky square proportions. So this deck is definitely cut into the mass of the house, which is really interesting, and it's very asymmetrical. And so once again, you have a shallow roof at the far right side with another window. So very traditional for this style. Shutters, like I love the fact that these are real shutters, although they look a little worse for wear on this one. I mean, this paint job is not exactly really playing up the Spanish colonial aspect, like the fact that it's white. I think a more traditional one. See what I have next. More traditional. Here we go. This one, this is actually kind of my favorite one that I saw. And here's the middle, and here's the other side. This one is great. The chimney's got the same way as the last one. It kind of pops out at the top without you seeing the whole chimney all the way down. It's got this kind of adobe / stucco aspect to it. The doors, the windows, they're full length. Asymmetry, the roof is one long plane all the way down, and in this case this little return gable end comes out even further than that, so there's a little more complication. There's basically a very shallow gable roof that comes off this way. It's got, you can see the very massive, in this case, you see this in ranches eventually, where you have a little bit of a floor that sticks out right here. You have a little bit of a floor, instead of this being massive all the way down, it gives you a little protection for this door, and it just kind of changes things slightly as on its way up. It actually gets a little bit bigger, which I think is super attractive. So this is a very traditional one. They have some terracotta little vents up here, I think, that they've put into it. I mean, these plate glass windows are not very traditional, but at least they're full length. Like, they're not couch height. They went all the way down to almost to the floor. So yeah, chunky, not turned. There's a little decoration on this column here, but it's almost like hewn with an axe, right? It's very straight, no fussy balustrade or little turn pieces. Everything is very, I consider, masculine. And then the color of this is great. It's like the wall is kind of the bright part of the house, and then the wood is all very dark. Yeah, I really like this. And then the fact that the vents here are really vents, because they have to respect the chimney. So that's kind of cool. So, and once again, you have the shutters on the second floor, but not the first. And I'm not sure why that is. That may just be so people don't mess with them or break them out of harm's way. Here's a kind of a mixture of the two we saw. So this case, I'm not convinced that this was a Spanish style house its whole life. It may have been built as kind of a hybrid. So after what we just talked about, can you kind of identify some ways that this isn't quite the same? First of all, so the chimney's not in the middle like on the other two. It was right along the ridge. It is a shallow roof, but the plane of the roof really breaks here. Look at how it comes down, and right as it goes over the porch, it breaks slightly. It has asymmetry to it, but it's not really convincingly asymmetrical. It has one section that's pushed back, but it doesn't have much of an overhang. It does repeat the dark wood along the roof, but not on the deck area, not down here. And this is relatively fussy compared. It's square, but it's relatively fussy painted wise compared to some of the other two we saw. At least $1 million house, because if you knew where it was, it probably looks right at the ocean. Landscaping's beautiful. I do like the way they captured they brought the roof out. I just wish it would have stayed a little more traditional, but what can you do? Here's another great one. This is definitely a multi-million dollar house. This is right on the ocean. Basically, there's a street, and then there's this amazing view. So in this case, I love the way they've gained this privacy back. They have this very high top floor, and this masculine woodwork, which is just makes me so happy to see that kind of. And then these lights out there, which are, they have these kind of torch aspects to them, very, very Spanish romantic to me. I love the heavy woodworking, like no fussy details, almost like it's done with an axe. Everything's square and straight. There's a little detail here, but the fact that it's on one plane is pretty cool. And then the fact that it's brown. In this case, no shutters anywhere up here, but the light color, even though it's got a siding on it, I'm pretty convinced it sticks to that Spanish style. And then it's got a little blue around these windows, which is nice, and it also echoes the blue we have going on down here on the tile, and then the tile roof over the wall. That's a nice repetition of elements. So here we are straight on, and this is quite a bit of privacy. It's very public space. It's an amazing view, but I like the way they capture this. I think in the United States we really struggle with like what is public and what is private, and people feel like they need to do too much performing about giving up their space to make it a nice lawn or to make it a nice view from the street. You don't owe people anything, and having a wall like this gives that nice privacy behind, and then you can still have the view. So that's my introduction to you. I love Spanish colonial architecture. It just has I mean, first of all, you're designing around sun more than rain, which I love the idea of that, being a Pacific Northwest person. I just think that they're very pleasing, and I think that they have a high quality of living in them, right? Like they're comfortable. They think about shade. They think about they're relatively modest. They're not fussy, and they're made to last a long time generally with the materials. So that's our basic introduction to kind of the origins of the ranch house and Spanish colonial architecture. I'm Archer, so thanks for joining me on 3-Minute House Review. Look forward to seeing you next time here, and feel free to comment. I'd love to start a conversation. Also, House Architecture and Design is a Facebook page I've started to have this kind of conversation where I post stuff almost every day, not necessarily videos, but houses I see and houses I like. I invite you, if you want my opinion about something, put it there. Maybe I'll make a video about it. All right, we'll see you next time.